let's talk about West Bromwich Albion's strong connection with Turkish league or Turkish players. They brought in 2 players, one Turkish international and the top scorer from the previous season in Turkish Super League, Diagne. Let's start first with Diagne. He's a prolific goal scorer, but sometimes inconsistent, even controversial player everywhere he goes. Let me ask you, it seems to me he's mostly an old style of striker. He mostly awaits the ball coming to him. Is he up to your expectations so far?
It's a strange one with Diagne. He's already made a big difference, but arguably he should have made an even bigger difference, because he's given West Brom a focal point at the top end of their team, which they haven't had all of this season and even last season when they won promotion. Mm-hmm. And because of that, they've begun to create a lot more chances than they've been creating for the whole season. Many of which have fallen to Diagne himself, but they haven't actually taken those chances, most of them, and he's been as guilty as anyone of missing really good chances. So he's really changed West Brom's team positively, but you could argue that the impact should have been a lot greater if his finishing had matched the rest of his game.
You're right. If he had been just a bit luckier against Man United and Burnley, the score could have been much different. You told us about the goal chances. Do you observe statistically as well the goal chances are up since his arrival 1 month ago?
Well, certainly, I'm not sure if you're a believer in expected goals, but I mean, certainly West Brom's XG has gone up in the last couple of games, and just from the evidence of your eyes, you watch them and they look like scoring goals at the moment, which that they haven't really done all season. I mean, Diagne has been great in one way, but frustrating in another. I mean, you probably saw the chance against Burnley when he did all of the hard work and beat 2 or 3 players and showed his real power and skill. And then, arguably the easiest part was finishing off the chance and missing the defender on the line, and he ended up hitting the defender on the line, which was really, really frustrating. I think you'd have to say that he's been a success so far with West Brom because they look a much more dangerous team with him in it, but there's just a frustration that they haven't really got the rewards from that, the improvement.
And as far as I know, he wasn't very keen to get into duels both on the ground and aerials. How do you rate his work rate over here?
Effort-wise, it's been fine. He's done all of the running you would expect from him. He could have had a couple of assists, fairly unselfish assists. So he's clearly not just all about himself. But as you say, he looks like the kind of player who is physical, but that physicality is used really for creating chances as opposed to getting involved in the build-up, really.
I was told by my close friends who are expert on Turkish league, Diagne is in need of constant motivation by his teammates and by his manager. Do you feel that he's playing very motivated over here?
Yeah, he certainly seems to be. I mean, I guess you would expect that. 3 or 4 games into his West Brom career, if he's not motivated now, then there really would be a problem. I mean, he's got a big chance to prove himself in the Premier League, and to maybe if West Brom go down, then to show other Premier League teams that he's capable of doing a job at this level. But yeah, I've certainly sensed no lack of motivation.
Diagne is on loan only for 6 months at West Brom. Do you see him staying beyond summer at West Brom?
I would be surprised if West Brom are relegated, which you have to say looks like the most likely scenario at the moment. I mean, I'm not sure what his wages would be. I'm guessing they would probably be out of the reach of a Championship club. I guess it would depend partly how much Galatasaray need to sell, and also how much Diagne wants to play in England, whether he'd be willing to sacrifice one season maybe and spend one season in the in the Championship to come back up. But I would say overall unlikely.
Now let's get to Okay Yokuşlu. He is also on loan from Celta for 6 months at West Brom. Maybe he needed that move to revive his career. He played 3 games so far, 2 as a starter. Do you really think that the West Brom has finally found the defensive midfielder?
Okay, has already become a real favourite with the West Brom fans. He's the kind of player that they haven't had for probably 3 or 4 years now. I mean, they had an Argentinian guy called Claudio Jacob, who was with the club for quite a few years, who did that job in front of the defence, reading things, breaking things up, keeping it very simple. Okay, I have to say, looks like a step up from Jacob in that he does all of those things that Jacob did defensively in terms of reading danger, making tackles, making interceptions, screening the back four, but he looks better in possession than Jacob ever did. Jacob had a habit of winning the ball and occasionally giving it straight back to the opposition. Okay, doesn't really do that. I mean, he doesn't seem to try elaborate, extravagant passes, but the passes he does make are generally accurate and they find a teammate. So yeah, West Brom have been screaming out for probably 2 or 3 years at least for that kind of player. Powerful, strong, protect the back four, and Okay has come in and really made an impression in his 2 and a bit games.
You said he's powerful and strong. Do you think that he's built up to play in the Premier League?
It looks to my layman's untrained eye that the Premier League is the ideal league for him. I mean, obviously the Premier League is technical and probably more technical than people give it credit for. But compared to Spain, it's a good blend of physicality and technical football. Okay seems to have a bit of both. He seems to just have the perfect attributes for the Premier League, and a bit like Diagne, probably even more so than Diagne. I suspect that Okay is thinking, well, if I do really well for West Brom, regardless of what happens to West Brom at the end of the season, other Premier League clubs will notice this, and I've got a chance of staying in the Premier League with someone next season. I mean, if I were a team at the top of the Championship now, looking to get promoted to the Premier League, I'd be taking notice of Okay and thinking, well, if we get promoted, he's the kind of guy that we need to protect our back four in the Premier League next season.
Great, you already answered my final question, but before then, I was about to ask you about his offensive contribution. You may remember we had a chat before his arrival to West Brom. He was a more attacking midfielder when he was in youth years. Do you expect him contributing also in offensive side of the game?
I think he will on occasion. I mean, I remember a moment towards the end of the Burnley game at the weekend when West Brom were pushing for the winning goal. Okay, who hadn't really ventured over the halfway line for much of the game, suddenly appeared on the edge of the Burnley penalty area because he just made that powerful run forward. And I'm sure he will pick, as he gets more confidence and gets to know his teammates more and gets to know the league more. Maybe we'll see more of that. Maybe we'll see him picking the right moments to get forward and get into the opposition box. But I don't think that will be his primary. At the moment, he's playing alongside in a 3-man midfield with Conor Gallagher, who's on loan from Chelsea, and Ainsley Maitland-Niles, who's on loan from Arsenal. And both of those players are very energetic, and a lot of their game is about getting into the opposition box to support Diagne. So that is their job. Okay's job is different. Okay's job is to make sure that when West Brom give the ball away, there is at least one midfielder behind the ball to screen the defence. So I don't think we'll be seeing him going forward a lot, but I'm sure he will pick the right moment to try to get forward.
Steve, thank you very much for being our guest and giving your very precious opinion on both Diagne and Okay Yokuşlu.